Hi, this is Brian Roy.
And I'm Cyril War, and welcome to the Shaping Spirit podcast. We're just two guys from California with a bunch of academic degrees. We studied spirituality all over the world, and we're bringing it all right back here for all of us. What's the topic for today, Brian?
The topic for today is gratitude. And given the spirit of the seasons here in the West, Thanksgiving is upon us here in the United States. For those of you who do not participate in Thanksgiving or are unaware of what it is, it's this American holiday where basically, if we reduce it down to what it really is, basically expressing gratitude and giving thanks for life and what we have in our lives. And we decided that we wanted to talk about gratitude today from a spiritual perspective and explore that a little bit with all of you. So, Cyril, talk to me about gratitude, my friend. Educate me.
I was going to ask
me,
you the
give
question.
me something.
Tell us a personal experience, either a personal realization or a personal anecdote vis-a-vis gratitude.
I'll start it with this. I find gratitude to be oftentimes thrown around in a negative light. A lot of times there's people that say, you should be grateful for this or you should be grateful for that. And what I did was I grabbed a Webster's Student Dictionary because I wanted us to look at what the actual definition is from Webster's Dictionary for students, basically kids, right, in terms of the definition of gratitude. And it says here, noun, a feeling of appreciation or thanks. And I like this definition. It's very simple. And I'd like to speak to the aspect of the first part of that definition, which is appreciation. So when I think of gratitude and having that sense of appreciation, a lot of times people think of gratitude only in the sense of something that positive that happens in their life. And I am very grateful and appreciative of the struggles I've had in my life. And I believe that the struggles that I have had have developed me into being a stronger individual, somebody that's been able to persevere through craziness, just absolute horrific situations in my life, and get through on the other side with a sense of humor and with a sense of peace, understanding, and patience. And I don't think I would be able to sit here and discuss that and literally also sit in a position of forgiveness if I could not sit with a position of gratitude and appreciation for things that have happened. Because I really, truly believe that struggle allows us to appreciate things more and be grateful. Because I think that when things are just handed to you in life, and I see this all the time nowadays around people that are very successful, and then they just try and buy their kids everything. I see kids walking around with iPhones. I'm like, why does a 10-year-old have an iPhone, $1,000 phone? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Why does this kid have this or that? There's really no sense of appreciation. And when you don't have that sense of gratitude and you're not earning your place in life, I think you take things for granted. And, that's something that I definitely don't want to teach my children. I don't want them to be selfish, and I don't want them to walk around with this sense of entitlement. And to me, gratitude and appreciation, I think you dig in a little bit deeper in terms of what you're grateful for when you have to fight for it. What about you?
I like that connection you make with appreciating the so-called negative things that happen to us in our life. It's a lot harder. Right? It's a lot harder to be... it's a lot harder to be grateful for tragedies, for example, that happen in our life than for, winning the jackpot. Or, I'm not advocating that anyone should gamble, But, or getting into a great relationship or getting a promotion or having a great business deal go through and making tons of money or, becoming really popular one day or, the good stuff, right? So, but when the bad stuff happens, it's like, when good stuff happens, it's like, thank you, God, or thank you, God. And when bad things happen, thank you, God, also. Whoa, it's a tougher attitude to have. And so why should we try? Why should people try to be grateful, whether the universe throws good or bad stuff or so-called bad stuff at us? Like, what's the underlying assumption of such an attitude? That's an interesting question. And I would venture, I don't know what you think, but I would venture that one of the assumptions that's assumed is that the universe, the divine, just life in general, as it is, influenced, guided from above, is ultimately very good, right? I don't think you can be grateful for quote unquote bad things that happen to you in your life unless you accept on faith that the divine is good, that there's a lot of goodness, out there and inside as well. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think you have to have that balance, and I think something that is deeply related to gratitude is the good old H word, humility. And humility, I believe, allows us to cultivate a balanced sense of gratitude and appreciation. Without humility, it's very easy for us to stick our neck out there and say, to your point, Cyril, all these good things when I'm successful, this and that. It was my doing. I did this, I did that. Look how amazing I am, right?
Yeah.
And if it was bad, then it's the same person that goes, why did all this happen to me? Why is all this happening to me? I'm suffering. Why am I suffering? Why I'm a good person. Why did XYZ, why did XYZ happen? So that sense of humility is important.
I like that.
And I think not to keep this running topic going that we have in every podcast, but because you are not your body, to identify with material reactions in the natural world, in this material world that we exist in, and hold it as your reality instead of looking at it as a spiritual learning experience. It keeps you kind of bound to this sense of anxiety that comes up when you don't have a sense of appreciation and gratitude.
Do you think gratitude, let's say, people from poor countries, like let's say third world countries, right? Or people who grew up in really, humble settings, do you think they tend to be more grateful than people who are born, let's say, for example, in first world countries or in really comfortable material situations, with a lot of money, a lot of facilities, comfort, and so on? Is it a totally wrong stereotype, or is there some validity to make the claim, a careful claim, that the more, let's say, the more of a silver spoon or a golden spoon one has in one's mouth as one, let's say, lives and grows up, the harder it is to be grateful, and vice versa? Or do you think the opposite? Like in terms of numbers, of demographics? Because there's always exceptions.
I actually agree with you. And what I've seen out there from a sociological perspective, the research agrees with you as well. Interestingly, what they have found is people that come from materially poorer backgrounds are typically richer in spirit and have a deeper sense of humility and gratitude and happiness versus these first world countries. And again, I'll just point to the United States because this is where we live. This is where we are citizens of, and we kind of know the rat race that exists here in this country. When you are engaged in this ultra competitiveness of the particular mindset of work, it's a slave mindset. And we're not talking about not being a high achiever, because we want to be high achievers, materially, spiritually, be a high achiever. But if you can't have a sense of balance in your life and a sense of appreciation and gratitude, then you're going to constantly be miserable. And I think it really ties into like that sense of spirituality and that connectedness, right? And knowing the interconnectedness. Because how is it that you can go to these poorer countries and they have such a deep-rooted sense of belonging and family and a connection to the divine, and they're happy, and regardless of whether or not they're living in they don't have like the most modern car, or they don't have, like you've made before, like the 5G internet, they're happy people, because there's that sense of interconnectedness, connection to the divine, and family.
But then one could play the devil's advocate and say, well, wait a second, and then that implies that, money's bad, or, material comfort's bad because it makes you less grateful and less humble, and therefore one should not strive to become rich, or one should not strive to become successful in a career. And that kind of ties into what we talked about last week, this notion which you unpacked of false renunciation. How do you reconcile, the notion of the idea that, okay, the more money and the more facility, the less humble and grateful, with, a healthy striving and working towards material success?
Okay, I think that can be easily answered like this. One, what is your motivation? Is your motivation to be successful just to, control others? Or is your motivation in success about helping others and giving to the world? And you see this with a lot of billionaires now. They're incredible philanthropists. When you have somebody like Jeff Bezos, who's giving away 90% or 99% of his fortune, you have these billionaires that, not just him, but other ones that have written contracts, and they're all making these pacts where they're like, we're giving away all of our fortune. And they're going out there and they're helping the poor, and they're helping these underserved communities, and they're trying to build up education in places where children don't even have the opportunity to learn to read. I mean, I think that's amazing. Or to quote the old Dickens classic, Ebenezer Scrooge, right? Are you Ebenezer Scrooge? Or you're just a bah humbug that you're just looking to count every penny for yourself to accumulate and,
So you're talking
others.
about motivation basically as a key factor in determining the answer to that question. It all depends on your consciousness.
I believe it's all about your consciousness, because I think actually gratitude is two things. I mean, we have it here in the dictionary telling us, it's a noun. It's to me, it's two things. It's an attitude. Gratitude is an attitude, and gratitude is an action, right? It's how do you move through the world consciously in the mode of goodness. And I know we've discussed this, briefly before in other podcasts. How do you move consciously in the mode of goodness, where you're there to actually serve and use what you have as tools to help others,
not just
and
what
share
you
with the
have,
world.
right? What you accumulate, like what you can, what you will make.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, because a lot of times there's this idea, okay, I'll become spiritual. Okay, I'm starting to become spiritual, and that's when I stop working or I stop putting effort, right? So it's not just you engage what you accumulated up to now for some spiritual purpose, but you continue also simultaneously to continue to generate money, to continue to generate fame, or to continue to generate success in whatever field you are in. And simultaneously, on parallel lines, you have a spiritual consciousness. You show that by some actions, right?
Yeah. I agree with you. And it is about your actions. It's about the mindset. And I don't know if this is going to start to become a running theme in the podcast about quoting songs, but I do want to quote a song for you from, do you know who Travis Tritt is? He's a country music singer.
No.
It's Travis Tritt. He's one of my favorite country music singers. He's got a song, and I think it's all about gratitude. called It's a Great Day to Be Alive. And I highly encourage everyone, if you haven't heard it, go out and listen to it. Even if you don't like country music, just listen to it, read the lyrics, and just sit and absorb the lyrics, meditate on the lyrics, whatever you want to do. And I just want to read to you just a little quick snippet of it. He says in the chorus, and it's a great day to be alive. I know the sun's still shining when I close my eyes. There's some hard times in the neighborhood, but why can't every day be just this good? And to me, this mindset is very balanced, right? He sees, okay, there's stuff going on that isn't really that great, but the whole purpose of the song was like he's going on with his life and he's appreciating everything around it. Okay, he's going to make some rice. He's going to do this. He's going to take care of the lawn. He's going to be with his family. There's so much we can be appreciative for.
That's a really good point.
And
That's a really good point about there's a lot of things that we can be grateful for. Breathing, for example. Because we had this topic already lined up for the last week, so I was meditating. Okay, what do I want to talk about, right? When I'm talking with you, and you just touched on something that I wanted to share, and that is this idea that there's a lot of things that we have to be grateful to, or that we tend to take for granted. We tend to take for granted the fact that we're breathing, the fact that we have there's people out there who can't breathe, who have like horrible asthma, or maybe some of our hearers have asthma. But the fact that we can walk, the fact that whatever we have, whatever physical capacity we have right now, today, whether it's seeing or hearing or, not having too many, digestive issues, being able to, digest and evacuate more or less properly. Like, how much do we take that for granted, The fact that we exist, Brian, the fact that we exist, the very fact that we exist, I mean, like, oh my God, no?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it's, I don't know what the actual number is. They always make that joke. Okay, there was a comedian that made a joke of like, okay, of all the sperm that could reach an egg, of all the billions of sperm, it had to be you. And to me, it's just like that's so funny. It's just like, funny. Yeah, it had to be you. It had to be us. It had to be me. It had to be all of us. For a reason, right? You're here for a reason. It had to be you. And now, okay, what are we doing here? Boy, we should have so much gratitude. And that's really the one thing we need to consider. It's incredibly, incredibly important.
You make me think actually of a poem that my mom left me after she left the world when she passed away. And there was a poem that she had collected, some Irish poem that rhymes, and that I'll paraphrase it because I don't have it right in front of me, but it says basically something like this: that your mom's the one who like cleans up your crap when you're a baby, who washes you, cleans you, who gives you love, blah blah blah, and then you never miss her until she's 20 feet under the ground.
That's true, right? It's absolutely true. That's what ends up happening to us.
Your parents are still alive, right?
My parents are still alive. Yeah.
So you're not making the mistake of acting in such a way that after they leave, you'll be like, oh man, I didn't show them enough love. I wasn't grateful enough.
No, it's one of those things where it's just like there's so much you can do on so many levels. When people get older, everybody's different. You have to realize, they lose their friends, they lose everything. Right. And they don't have much left. My parents are still married after, God knows how many years, 50 years or something. And that's uncommon, and they're both still alive. But, you look around them and when they go, oh yeah, well, we're left. How many of our friends are left? Not many. Right. Not many. So,
I remember when my father was old, getting old, maybe 5 years, 10 years before he died. I remember we were having lunch once, and he just mentioned kind of out of the blue, like, he would have these like spurts of just observations, which I found often very interesting. And one time I'll remember, like he said, you know what's really scary? Like, I'm scared by this. He said, I'm scared because I look around, and as I'm getting older, like, I have less and less friends because, like, all of them have died. Many of them have died, and they're dying. And it's like, I've got less and less of my friends because when I think of all my friends, they're like, most of them are dead already. And that's scary.
That's crazy, huh? It's so crazy. It's sad too. But that's what we have to kind of be aware of and know what our mortality is.
What about? Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
No. It's just, and we have to be aware of that. And how are we good to people? Right? Think about that. We have to be good to people. And I don't know. I think that's so important. And we miss out on that a lot.
What about resentment? What's the relationship between gratitude and resentment? Are they compatible? Can we say, I tend to believe that the more resentful we are, the more resentment we hold in our consciousness. And, I'm speaking to myself here because there's a few people in the world that still today, I feel a lot of resentment against. And maybe we could do another episode one day on, how do you deal with resentment on the spiritual path, right? But maybe we could touch on it in relationship to gratitude. Like, can we really express at least a lot of gratitude if we're holding on and not forgiving? Like, doesn't forgiveness and gratitude go hand in hand?
I think so. I think forgiveness and gratitude goes hand in hand because I don't think you can have a full sense of gratitude without a sense of forgiveness. I agree with you 100%. It's one of those things where when you hear people, when you listen or read a book where somebody is talking about a tragedy or they were involved in, like, say, genocide or something like this, right? It's one of those things where it's a very real thing. And how did they get through, say, genocide, or their country was destroyed and they became a refugee, or they were in some kind of war camp? How do they get through that and then still have that sense of love and gratitude and appreciation, right? I don't know if you've ever read that book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Maybe. At UC Santa Barbara, maybe.
Yeah. So
we both went to UC Santa Barbara, by the way. We both got
did.
degrees in religious studies.
Yeah. So that's one of those things where, you have to have a sense of forgiveness in order to have gratitude and in order to develop yourself.
But why? Let's unpack that. Because, okay, you agreed with me. We both agree that we have to be forgiving in order to express gratitude or to feel gratitude. Why? Mm-hmm. One thing that comes to mind is because they're incompatible. They're incompatible emotions. It's just like, some food preparation, some food mixings, just in terms of tastes, right, are just really incompatible. I don't know, like strawberry ice cream with a lot of pepper, black pepper. I mean, some people may like that, but generally speaking, they don't, like, most people would agree that, I don't know, black pepper and strawberry ice cream don't go well together, right?
You're probably right.
Right? Now, so in a similar way, I think gratitude and unforgiveness don't mix well. But let's unpack that, can we? Why do they not mix well?
Well, I think, there's an old ancient saying, open door, open mind, open heart. Unless you have a true sense of forgiveness, how can you have gratitude? Because you're not going to have the ability to receive it. You don't have any ability to receive if you are holding on to resentment. And the ability to give love and receive love is, to me, the apex of it all. And how can you receive love if your heart is so covered with resentment and hate?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. The door's closed.
Cannot.
The door's closed.
The door is closed. I mean, imagine, let's say, this is a very extreme example, but let's just say you are a white supremacist and you're driving your car somewhere and it gets crashing into the side of the road and you fall into a swamp and you're stuck in your car. And the only person around to save you is a person of color. Are you going to be grateful? Or are you going to be so filled with hate because you're so blinded by your obsession with the color of someone's skin that you're just going to be like, get away from me, don't touch me. You're not the same skin color as me. I'd rather die than you save my life. I mean, I'm using this as like a very extreme, example.
Yeah, door is closed.
But that door is so closed, so far closed. And I know we've talked about, I think in our first podcast, about how they said our genome is 99.9% the same, right, amongst humans. And so for somebody to have that degree of hate in their heart over something so absurdly ridiculous as a skin tone, and they would rather die than have somebody with a different shade of skin save their life. I mean, I'm using that as an example because that's how we have to look at it, right? We all need to have this visual of how absurd it is. Forgiveness is not for the perpetrator. The forgiveness is for the victim, the person on the receiving end of the aggression. And when I learned that was something that helped me to start to appreciate those people in my life over the years that made my life a living hell. The times in my life where I know I was tortured, and maybe one day it'll come out in a book, but I've had very serious traumatic events happen to me over the years. And I'll tell you what, Cyril, I had to adopt that sense and that mindset of forgiveness in order to be grateful and appreciative and be like, you know what I learned from that? Never mind the fact that this person was a terror in my life. They taught me how not to be. They taught me how not to be a person.
You remind me of the saying, there's no test that God puts in your way that's too difficult to overcome, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I agree with that 100%.
I don't know. Do you remember Game 7 of the legendary NBA Finals between Cleveland when they won and they came back from 3-1. They defeated Golden State?
No.
Okay, so it came down to the wire. I'll always remember this because, whatever LeBron James may say here and there about this or that other topic, let's make abstraction of that. But when Cleveland won, and it was just like 2 points, a 2-point differential. It was a super, super, super close Game 7, and they won, right? And at that very moment, the whole auditorium or the whole stadium or the whole whatever, where they play basketball, they went nuts. And the interviewee, the person, the lady who was interviewing, who came with the mic, and so LeBron's like in tears, right? And everyone's celebrating around, they're screaming, and he's just like he's literally like he's totally exhausted, he's totally wet by his sweat, and he's literally crying. And national TV, prime time national TV is all eyes are on him, right? And I'll always remember, like before, right after he says, Cleveland, this is for you. He said something really interesting. He said, with his broken, English that I can't imitate. He said, there's I don't know why, the man above, he referred to the divine or to God as the man above, which I find really cool. So I don't know, I don't know why sometimes a man above makes it so difficult, but there ain't no obstacle, or there ain't no test that God puts, in your path that you can't overcome. And, I don't know why sometimes he makes it harder. He makes it, you have to go the long way instead of the short way. And he expressed that faith that there is nothing that, kind of like if it doesn't break you, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Like there's nothing that God allows to come into your life that you're not strong enough to overcome. And then coming to your point, therefore, ultimately we can be grateful for things that happen to us because they make us stronger. They make us stronger spiritually. They make us wiser. They make us more humble. They make us more, they make us better persons, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It really does. And that's how we develop our character, But
when it's happening, it's hard, isn't it? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for us to take a step back. And I think that's where we have to kind of get into the mindset, right? All of us have to be conscious and aware that our reactions shape our reality. So if we are having extreme reactions, violent reactions, dramatic reactions, instead of take a second, step back, take a minute, take a day, take 2 days, step back and realize, okay, how can I get through this situation? Who can help me? How do I have to do this? Get organized before you take action, right? Unless, in one sense where that wouldn't apply. Let's say you're, walking through your town and you're under siege and there's sniper fire from every which way. Yeah, you better run like hell. And I will say, if you're running like hell, run zigzag. That's something that I learned back in the day. You run zigzag if you're under bullet fire. That way you don't get caught. But that's another discussion altogether. But really, if it's not something where it's immediately life-threatening, where it's that second you're going to die, we need to take pause and take inventory and measure our reaction to where we can have the most positive outcome and the most successful outcome. Because the more measured we are in our reactions and the more measured we are in our actions, that will enable our success materially and spiritually and enable us to have a deeper sense of appreciation and gratitude for what's around us.
Yeah. Good point. I want to go back to that thing I just touched on at the very beginning. This faith, you got to have faith that God, the divine, is really, 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 really good, like super good to you, right? Mm-hmm. That if there wasn't like a ton of sort of like close a blind eye in a good sense, that God or the divine kind of like is really forgiving and to everybody, then if it was really tit for tat, if we were really living a life where we were really sort of getting what we deserve, in regards to how we react to circumstances, like you aptly said, right? Mm-hmm. Then, we have to have faith that if it wasn't for God's goodness, we probably would be suffering a lot more. We'd be suffering a lot more. That we have to have faith that, just like you hear so many Christian pastors, God is good, God is good, God is good, right? Mm-hmm. Well, hey, I think that's a very, very healthy belief to have. And maybe, I believe maybe it actually corresponds to a reality. That the very nature of conscious reality is overflowing with goodness and compassion and forgiveness. And that affects our own life. And therefore, we should be grateful, because if it wasn't for that extra credit that's causeless, that doesn't come from any justifiable, source really, but it's just really out of the heart of the divine, if there wasn't that huge layer, that thick layer of kindness and love and forgiveness and bliss and happiness and peace that's permeating the universe and the world, in spite of us, of our inability to perceive it most of the time, we'd be suffering a lot more. And so therefore, all the more reason to be grateful for what we have, because actually maybe we don't deserve it, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like this idea that, the analogy, like, you cut your finger. You cut your finger a little bit, like you get, I don't know, you're cutting vegetables and you cut your finger, not too bad, but it bleeds, right? Imagine if you're able to cut your finger by accident and say, wow, thank you, because actually I should be like losing my whole arm right now. But because of, the grace that permeates existence, I'm just getting, a token of what maybe I should actually be suffering. And therefore I'm grateful. What do you think of that?
I like that. I like that a lot. I think, again, it gets back to that measured response, right? Measured reaction and appreciation of what is happening around us. And appreciation for how whatever gets thrown at us, like you were saying, will develop us and build us and ultimately make us stronger. We've all heard that saying, that which does not kill you will make you stronger. Yes, okay. That's true. But we want to be stronger consciously. We want to be stronger in the mode of goodness, right? We don't want to be stronger in hate or anger. We don't want to be fueled by anger. And this is where it gets back into your point that you made earlier about forgiveness. I think forgiveness sets us on the right path of gratitude, right? Appreciation and gratitude. So, and it permeates in everything that we do.
What permeates?
Every day.
What permeates in everything we do?
This sense of opportunity for forgiveness. Okay? And an opportunity for appreciation. It's there in everything that we do. Because imagine this, right? How many times, I know I'm guilty of this, I'm getting on the freeway or I'm driving somewhere and somebody cuts me off. I just last night, I was driving one place. I was driving to a concert. And I kid you not, I got cut off just in one area alone 5 times. And I had to laugh. I just had to keep laughing about it because the last thing I wanted to do was create a sense of anger and put myself in a road rage.
You didn't pull out your gun and shoot him?
No. But that's the thing, right? Give me an opportunity. So I had to look at it and have an opportunity to go, hey, you know what? I'm so grateful I was aware of the jokers around me that I didn't get into a car accident.
You see, I have to say something here, and in glorification of you, because the ability to tolerate, like you did, right, in that instance, it doesn't come from thin air. I would bet $1,000 that at that particular moment and those hours preceding, and probably the day before as well, you had made some effort, if not a lot, to deepen your spiritual consciousness. That analogy of filling your cup, right? The Christian notion of filling one's cup or having one's cup filled, and therefore the overflow over and above the rim of the glass is precisely the stuff that you can use and consume and eat up in a situation like that, where you have enough of that goodness stuff from your own, spiritual practice, from your own meditation, your own prayer, your own introspection, to be able to overcome those temptations and then those pulls to anger, right? So kudos to you, because it's not, it's nice to speak about being able to tolerate. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? Can I tell you once?
Please.
Okay, I was part of an outreach music band in a rock reggae band in Poland. I was the lead singer, and I just came to the band, and Eastern Europeans are not as in general, in my experience, they're not as sort of soft and gentle and sensitive as North Americans. Okay, they're just kind of like rough bears in comparison. With all due respect, it's my experience. I own it. Okay, and I remember there was this. We were doing a rehearsal, and at one point, because I was the singer, the sort of the band leader wanted to practice a particular break or something that didn't have anything to do with the singer. So I said, well, listen, I'm just going to go take a break right now because you don't need me as the singer. And he insisted, no, I'm the band leader and, I'm ordering you to stay here. And I was like, what? So I walked out because it was just like so like far. It was just so weird and I just so surreal that I just walked out and I took a while. I remember I walked out in the garden and then I asked a friend who happened to be there. I was like, this just happened. What am I supposed to do right now? And I remember this friend, he was like, man, you should be humble. You should just be humble and tolerate it. And so I remember I paced back and forth for about 3 minutes. Be humble, tolerate, be humble, tolerate. And at one point I just lost it because my cup was not overflowing. So I was already, running on reserve. And I remember I lost it. I literally ran back into the rehearsal room and bawled the guy out. I was like, you are not my authority, blah, 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 and shut the hell up. And what the hell, who do you think you are? Contrary to your sane and peaceful and self-controlled and compassionate reaction on that freeway. The difference being that, you, I would assume, were a lot more deep spiritually at that moment and prior to than me in that particular instance.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I think it's just an exercise in patience, right? And because I get irritated all the time, but my internal irritation, how does it manifest? The worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to be cursing in the car, right? Or say, whatever, blah, 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 about whoever cut me off or whatever, if something happened to me during the day. I usually just take it as some point of reflection, to your point. And I do meditate a lot. So, I probably meditate about an hour to 2 a day. And typically it's throughout the day. So I'm not the type of person, like I can't sit for too long. So I'm not the type of guy that can sit and meditate for like an hour or 2 straight. It's just not me. I can't do that. But I can break it up into chunks. I can do 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, as long as I get in what my personal meditation goals are, which I have for myself on a daily basis. As long as I get that in for myself, I'm very lenient with how I do it. But what I do like to practice is make sure I have a decent amount of meditation done before what I consider meeting the day. So I like to have a certain amount of reflection and meditation done before I meet the day and go out to see other people and talk and work and all this, because I want to be of the right frame of mind so I can have as clear of consciousness as possible when I'm talking to people. And I think that I can then start to appreciate them more for whatever they throw at me, good or bad. And, if it's bad, I like to laugh. I think a lot of times people think I'm crazy because when people are getting upset, a lot of times I'll laugh about it. I used to have years ago, I was dating someone, and when she would get upset, and I would let her talk and go on and on and on about whatever was bothering her. And then at the end, I would just start laughing. And then she would start laughing. She's like, why are you laughing at me? I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing. Because I go, you're so expressive with this energy. I'm just watching what happens. And, and then it calmed her down that I was laughing. It was like, I'm not going to take it personally, what she's saying. And it's just like, and that's the thing, right? It's just like, you have to know when somebody's expressing themselves to you, and let's say it's something negative or aggressive, they're sharing something with you, and there's a reason they're sharing it. And so I have to, a lot of times, take a step back and just appreciate the fact that somebody chose to share with me. Because I don't know about you, Cyril, but I would much rather have somebody come to me and share with me something rotten than not say anything to me and go behind my back and then get stabbed in the back. I'd rather bleed from the front and know the knife is coming. Or at least parry it and get out of the way. Then I'd turn around and choke them, right? I use my jiu-jitsu, guys. So that's kind of how I would do it. I'm not a fan of backstabbers and all that kind of stuff. And even at that, how do you exercise a sense of forgiveness in order to then find gratitude and appreciation that you can learn something from that scenario, right? That there wasn't open communication. Somebody went behind your back to deceive you because they didn't know how to be honest with you. So their deceit is not your fault, but you can then figure out a way to be grateful for learning that, oh, this is a deceptive person. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God, for showing me this person's deception, and they can stay out of my life now, right? I'd be very appreciative. I don't know about you. I'd be very appreciative to know that somebody's
you
not a
often
good
hear
person.
that.
I want to stay out of their life.
Right? It was a silver lining. It was actually a blessing. You often hear this in terms of relationships, right? Relationship stories. It was a blessing in disguise, right? Yeah. I started dating this girl, and then 3 months in, I realized she was, I don't know, a serial killer. And, it was just the day before the marriage, and we were just about to sign a contract wherein we share all our fortune together, and I happened to be a millionaire, and she had $10,000 to her name. And, the day before, I'm making this up, but, it makes, it resonates with a lot of people. Wow, that was a blessing in disguise. Or, during those 3 months, whatever, I was able to get a divorce from my previous relationship, and therefore my money was saved. There's all these blessings in disguise, right? And again, it comes back to this point that, there's therefore, or no, not therefore, the blessing is this in disguise is testimony to this, this belief, this statement, this reality, I would claim, that God is good, that the divine is good, and that even things that appear to be setbacks are actually, in the ultimate sense, blessings in disguise for which we should be grateful,
I agree. Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I think we've kind of nailed several points here.
Yeah, but I want to quote one more song.
Please.
Bob Marley. Give thanks and praises. Give thanks and praises. And there's just that one line. I forget what song it's in, but I love that line. Give thanks and praises.
Yeah, Bob was into, not to turn this into a music podcast, which again, I think at some point it may evolve to, but whatever. Bob was an interesting character because there was so much spiritual undertone into his songs, into his writing, right? It was all about love and hope and appreciation and connection to God. And
a lot of it was very overt as well,
Yeah. But it's just there's so many songs that people don't even realize. So yes, there are many overt, but then even the ones that weren't, the covert ones, it was very deeply spiritual. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people around the world for, decades now have had such a deep appreciation for his music, because there was that sense of the writing, the tone was always about love and the divine.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
And gratitude, right? Gratitude and appreciation. That was Bob. That was all Bob. So yeah. All glory to Bob Marley. We love Bob Marley. And here's another one. What about, to get on our little musical rant here, George Harrison, the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. What a great song. Another song about, a very deep song about gratitude and appreciation.
Well, in his solo career, because what lyrics are you referring to in that particular song? What line?
Well, the whole thing. Number one, Here Comes the Sun.
Right, you're appreciating, you're grateful for the sun.
All the smiles returning to their faces. Literally, you can go line by line. I mean, the true intention of that song was quite esoteric, not to get into it in this podcast, but there was a lot of depth to that song. He actually wrote that as a homage to one of his dearest spiritual teachers. And actually, both of my children were, because both of my kids were C-sections, both of them were born to that song with intent. I intentionally had them both born to that song because of its meaning and beauty.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a very much a very dear song to me. Here Comes the Sun.
When he went into his solo career, he wrote one song, Isn't It a Pity? Remember? Isn't it a pity? Isn't it a shame? And then there's one line where he goes, forgetting to give back. Forgetting to give back. So that comes back to what you said a little earlier, that gratefulness, gratitude manifests in actions, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's where people are missing, you know? A lot of times, you know, it's, okay, yeah, saying thank you is great, but really going beyond thank you.
yeah, saying,
right?
saying
okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, looking somebody in the eye and actually expressing appreciation, there's many ways to express appreciation. And we don't want just gratitude to be as, I said thank you. That should be enough. You know?
Didn't you hear me?
Yeah.
I said it once. Too bad.
Yeah. You know, it's just like how we express our appreciation and really gratitude for those around us. We need to be conscious of that because it's not just a feeling. In my opinion, I like Webster's dictionary, but I'm going to disagree with Webster's dictionary. It's not just a feeling, it's an action. So gratitude as a verb is a call to action in showing yourself and reflecting back to people, you know, in different ways. And it could be done in so many different ways, but really take it from a spiritual perspective, right? Show a sense of appreciation and gratitude. Aimed with, you know, first we have to have that, like you said, Cyril, I thought you nailed this so beautifully. We have to have a foundation of forgiveness. Just in everything. It's just like, what do I have to forgive this person for? Just stop. Stop asking, what do you have to forgive somebody for? How about starting with forgiving yourself? Because guess what? We have all hurt ourselves many times throughout our lifetime. So before you point the finger at somebody else, when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, you got 3 pointing back at you. So every time you're pointing the finger that somebody hurt you or somebody did something to you, take the consideration, think of 3 things you may have done to hurt yourself. And then start with forgiveness right at the home base. Forgive yourself, forgive others, right? Then enact your life with a sense and feeling of gratitude and appreciation and act on it.
And just to add, you can add that sense of gratefulness to 2 categories of people or beings. You know, there's gratitude that you express towards other humans, other people, right? But I think it's also important that you have to spend some time being grateful to the divine, to the source of everybody. And while, you know, right, while we can say that, well, in a way, we're all one, we're all divine, yeah. But at the same time, you know, we can say there is a difference between the source and what comes out of the source. So in other words, you know, having some time where you're expressing gratitude to the big things, you know, to the existential things that only, you know, the divine or God is sort of responsible for, right? That's a nice
Absolutely.
mix. A nice mix of objects of your gratitude. Others and the man above, as LeBron James would say.
And, you know, to your point, Cyril, I'm going to laugh about this, but it's true. In case anybody who's listening hasn't figured it out yet, yes, we do believe in the divine. We believe in a higher power. We don't care what name you call the higher power or how you're going to describe the higher power and the divine. We have our own sense and personal individuality and our own sense of communion with the divine and our relationship with the divine. And we hope that you do as well. We want you to, and we're using this podcast as a vehicle to help you water those seeds and tend and make your spiritual garden grow. So yes, everything you're saying, Cyril, is 100%. You have to have that sense of gratitude for the divine. If it's not that obvious, we're talking about it. We have to talk about this on a multitude of levels, but it's incredibly important. That sense of gratitude to the higher power, divine, whatever you want to call that, whatever that personal name is for you, call on it and embrace it and love it with everything that you have, because there is nothing better than giving love and receiving love. That's what it is.
Amen, brother.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think we've gone around the block. What do you think?
We have. This has been awesome, man. This has been great. Keep those emails coming. Keep the questions coming. We're going to have another fun podcast for you. This has been so much fun, and we are very grateful that you are sharing this experience with us. So we cannot thank you, listeners, enough for doing this. Spread the word about the Shaping Spirit podcast. And if you have questions or comments, shapingspiritpodcast@gmail.com, shapingspiritpodcast@gmail.com, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Gratefully yours.